seem to have the main man, the head of VIP promotions, Steve Wood, and another great promoter who does most of his shows in London area. He also has on the South Coast, down to even Plymouth, I think. Steve Goodwin. I think it's important to hear from these two guys because they're the busiest non-televised small hall promoters in Britain, and boxing's taken another turn in the last 24 hours of the government guidelines. And particularly want to hear from Steve Goodwin because if we go back to, I spoke to Steve late March, early April, when he said, "Forget boxing for 12 months." And I think he might have said, "I've told all my guys to get a job." It looks like you were proven right, Steve. Have you got any plans at the moment? And what's your thoughts on what's happened over the last 24 hours of government guidelines?
Well, it's what I expected. I always thought this is what would happen. So that's why I always said to my guys, it's not going to be till 2021. And it goes back to the fact that there is no way that things can get back to small hall normal until there is a vaccine, and the vaccine is out there and the most vulnerable have taken it and it's available to others. And that was never, ever going to be available this year. It was, the earliest they were saying was October. It's probably not going to be till the start of next year. So it didn't matter what everybody was saying. The reality of it is that until there is medicines and people who've got the confidence to go out and are safe to do so, we can't have small hall boxing. And I now think that March is optimistic.
When would you be looking at now, Steve, do you think? I mean, it's more the summer maybe even then.
I think so. I mean, we'll keep Mark. I think we're totally under the guise of the scientists, but in reality, I think that summer next year is more realistic, but it's still possible if they do roll something out in December that we might be able to do March. So we'll keep our dates in March, but as it stands now, I think if I was a betting man, I would be betting later than March for myself and Steve to have full crowds at the shows.
Woody, let me ask you, where do you stand on where it puts your plans? Because I know you was not optimistic, but you penciled in your Jolly Boys shows in Liverpool and Manchester for December. Where do you stand now, Steve, on what's going to happen? Because I guess football is going to be the sport that leads everybody back.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy really that they're opening the pubs and you can go in a Rampack pub, but you can't go to sporting arenas. So the missed messages that are coming from the government are very, very confusing. So I know what Steve's saying, and he could be quite right with it there, but I'm hoping that we should be able to do some dinner shows in December. And, obviously, I don't think I'll be able to get a packed Jolly Boys like I always do, but I can't see why not that I can't have 6 on a table of 12 and space them out a little bit more. So instead of having 1,000 people in it, we might have 500 in it. So certainly with the numbers you can do there, I'd have to restrict it to only 5 shows and probably lose a little bit money, break even if you have a good raffle or something like that. But I wouldn't be doing my job right for the box if it wasn't open and getting things ready for open that we can do in December, yeah.
Woody, how have your boxers reacted to not having work? The guys who you'll get, you and Steve Goodwin have both got the odd kids on an Eddie show. I think you've had one on an MTK, one on a Frank show, one on an Eddie show so far. I may be wrong on that, or one coming up on a Frank show. How are those who are not getting the work reacting? Have they gone out and got jobs?
Well, not really, no. The majority of them are living on the breadline anyway, aren't they? So I think they decided to do that there. And for the first few months, I'm presuming I was the same as Steve. I wasn't getting any pressure off the kids to fight because they knew no one was fighting. But now they're starting to see the kids fighting on the TV shows. Certainly the better kids are phoning me up and saying to me, "Come on, Steve, get me on these fights. I'll fight anybody." So if I'm having no pressure, I'm getting a little bit of pressure from kids who are desperate to fight now. And one of my things is to make sure that when you do put them in a fight, and it'll be no different for Steve, we want to make sure they've got a chance of winning them, because you can get fights for kids, but just to get them beat up is certainly not what I'm about.
Steve Goodwin, how have your fighters reacted? Because as you say, you told a lot of that. Yeah, I think you told them to get a job if you can for a few months. How are they reacting now? Are they more pessimistic?
I've only had one or two even ring me to really, I'd say, getting desperate for fights. But I tell them one of the greatest things in life and the most successful things I was taught when I was young was the smartest people in life know when to sit on their hands and do nothing. And I had a fighter I was talking to yesterday who's had the perfect career built for him. He's on the verge of titles. And he's now getting desperate. Oh, I'll fight anybody. No, you won't. That's stupid. It's stupid. You've had a career built for 4 years. You've got a perfect record. You're going to be a TV fighter very shortly. Don't go and do something stupid. Just sit tight. So he listened to me. The rest of them, to be honest, have really understood it. I told them everything in March. I spoke to them all. So they've all seemed to grasp it, get it. It's not helped. The biggest problem I've had, well, I don't think Steve's had it, is there's been promoters in the South that have been, or managers in the South, promising kids the world and saying, right, sign with me and I'm going to, or leave your manager and I'm going to give you fights in October, November, December. We're going to be doing fights. We're going to be doing this. And then kids are hearing that in gyms and ringing up and going, why is this man saying he's doing that and you're telling us this? And I said, because the other guy's lying. It's not going to happen. And proven to be, he's lying. But it does cause problems when you're going around making false promises to these kids. As Steve knows and I know, if they're training for a fight that you know you probably can't deliver, that's not fair. So they're the only pressures I've had. Most of them know what I've told them, and I'm still saying the same thing. It's like Steve says, exactly the same position. That we're not saying that we won't be able to do a dinner type show. That's possible. But what we're talking about, going back to York Hall, 1,250 people rammed in and making shows that make any financial sense, they're down the line. We've got a chance, if the virus subsides, of maybe doing tables of 6 or whatever else it is. That's possible. But you can't base anything around that at the moment. We've just got to sit tight and wait.
Steve Goodwin, since lockdown, you spoke there about not a reluctance, but not signing fighters. How many fighters have you signed, and how many have you turned down? Can I ask?
I've signed 9, but they all know when they're going to box, which is not this year. So the only reason we signed those boxers is we met those that are good kids, but they want good guidance. So I've signed them. But I said to them, it's not costing you anything because you pay your license fee to the board. It does not start until you get medical. So we'll just get everything in place so that when we get 3 months notice, they can get medical and get started. I've turned down quite a few who want a fight date and, I want to fight in 2 months. So the other guy who's talking the bullshit, he can sign them and we'll sign the ones that are more level-headed and aren't going to be any trouble. As Steve would say, and I would agree, when you get fighters that start being unrealistic before they've even had a fight, my God, how bad is it going to be when they get 5, 6 or 7 wins? So we'll swerve the ones that are causing problems before we start.
Steve Wood, is that the same for you? Do you get that problem?
Very, very similar, yeah. But my position is it's no secret. I mean, I've got an exit strategy and I've decided that personally, I won't be signing any fighters after Josh Warrington finishes. So whether it's 2, it might be 3, 4 years now because we've had like a year with Josh not fighting. But certainly kids who want to go on their own now, I'm having nothing to do with, and I'm passing them to James Russell. So James, I think, has signed about 10 kids who wanted to come to us in the last like 3 to 4 months. I signed about 8, which I've done because there were trainers who I already work with, and I think that's where I'm up to now, is that, kids who are training with trainers, and I can see a chance of them being a champion. And when I say a champion, minimum central area is fine because that's a good achievement for them, but hopefully, British champion level. And so I've signed them, and I've kind of said to them exactly what the position is. And, at the moment, I don't know what it is down like South. Steve will tell you, but up here, they're not even interviewing the boxers yet.
Oh, we're being interviewed. They started the interviews 10 days ago here.
Right, well, you're in front of us. We've certainly not been interviewed for like 4 months now, and we're waiting to be told when they'll start doing and then put all the paperwork through to the head office. So it's going to take 2 months for anybody to even get a licence from the interview, isn't it, Steve?
100%. So that's why the ones that we do want and we think are worth that we want to have, we're saying get the application in now, get to the front of the queue and get interviewed quicker, because the worst thing is going to be when we announce that it's coming back, you're going to have loads of boxers ringing up trying to get licensed. There's probably going to be a 2 to 3 month wait for a hearing. So if a boxer wants to turn pro, they've got to do it now. But like for Steve and me, we don't want to sign everybody. We want to sign the right ones with some talent who have the right attitude.
Yeah, Woody, you were saying that you're not going to sign any more after Josh Warrington. Is that to promote, or will you still manage a few boxers?
I'll manage the kids who are still managed, but I won't manage any at all after that. I mean, I've already spoke to a few boxers, like Tom Farrell in Liverpool, to get a manager's licence, and I can point him his way. Obviously, Tommy Coyle's going to do it in Hull, and we'll find another few people so that, you know, hopefully we can still do a few VIP shows, and eventually them lads can learn how to do a promotion as well as manage the kids, because the only reason me and Steve can be successful at the managing is because we do promotional shows ourselves, because if you just manage them, you won't be able to build them up to the stage where they can get on the TV shows.
Yeah. Woody, if I ask you this, have any of you, I'm going to ask Steve the same question in a second, or the other Steve, have any of your fighters, said now, I'm just going to walk away from boxing now, it's just not worth it the year out?
I've not had any, which is unusual. I thought a few would have said that to me, but I've had none of them. But listen, we've always said to be a boxer, you've got to be a bit daft anyway, and you've got to really love being punched in the head, and that's what they do. And so if they've got to wait, they'll wait. So I don't think they look at it from a business sort of thing, where maybe me and Stevie's into finance, I'm into engineering. If it wasn't working in finance and engineering, we'd go and get another job. It'd be as simple as that for us. But they're a different breed, aren't they? Yeah.
Steve Goodwin, have any of your kids said that? I'm thinking that because some of your lads might have gone and got that job, might suddenly be walking at home with £500 a week. Suddenly they get a fight offer from you in April or May, and they've got to sell so many tickets. But in the meantime, they've got a couple of kids at home and they're earning good money. And maybe they might know they're not going all the way as a boxer, maybe area title level at best.
Yeah, so at the moment it's like Steve, no, but I wasn't expecting it to be now. I'm expecting that at the moment they're eating, they're doing other jobs, they're not worrying. When we turn around and say, right, we're ready to go again, get back in the gym, that's the time when I'm expecting quite a few, not just mine, of a lot of fighters to say, nah, I've moved on, I've had a kid, I've got a job, I don't really want to do it now, I've lost it. I think when some boxers lose momentum, they do stop. And that's normally, I don't know, Steve finds that you get the kids that get to 5, 6 and 7 and 0 who have been fed the usual journeyman, and now they're going to have to train harder and fight harder. That's the point upon which they sometimes think, oh, well, I think it's time to retire undefeated. So I think there'll be a few of that, and I think it will come, but that will come next year when we start up again fully.
Have you missed the promoting, Steve?
Not originally, not for a while. I'd say after about 3 or 4 months, I thought, God, I don't miss this at all. I've been busy doing my financial work, but I've got to say now, I'm missing it a bit. I'm quite happy to get back. But one thing that has changed, and I just had lunch with Kevin Campion just now.
Yeah, you're top man, Kevin.
Yeah, I'd say that, yeah, Kevin's great. And I've always had a thing that I say, most fighters are a headache, but that some can become a migraine. The migraine ones are going. I am not, as soon as they become a migraine now, they're out, because I don't want that anymore. I don't miss that part, because some are just unrealistic and too much work. And I want to help the ones that I want to help, but the ones that are just becoming a pain at the backside, then I think we will depart.
What about yourself, Woody, in that sense? I know you've said to me before, or a lot of managers, promoters said this, it's that trainers causing them trouble, causing fights. Have you been missing it, Steve?
I haven't really been missing it, no, because it's a horrible, stressful position. But what was Steve was saying there, I mean, obviously I've been doing a bit longer than Steve, so I'll go back to Dean Powell, where he used to say, like, he should be sponsored by Anadin because all the boxers were giving him headaches. I got to the stage where Steve's at now, probably 5 years ago, where, you know, he have had a bad apple, they go, you know what I mean? I just don't mess about. So you're right there, Steve, but make sure you stick to it, even if they're good, because eventually they'll fuck off and leave you anyway.
Right, no, I've had that.
You both had a few of them, haven't you? You both had that. You build a kid up to 20-0, get them their title, and suddenly the grass is greener on the other side, and a year later they're knocking on the door again.
I had one kid last October, he came to me and he said, I think he won his title, and he said, "You're the best manager that anybody could ever wish for. You're like a father to me. You're the most wonderful person. You're this, you're that, the other." 3 weeks later, he walks in the office and says, "Oh, I don't think you can take me to the next level. I think it's time to part ways." It says it all. It says it all.
No wonder you're not missing it too much. What about you, Woody? Without naming anyone, you could if you want, but you know, what's the best example like that where you've been told you're you know, Diego Maradona, Pele and Sugar Ray Leonard rolled into one day, and 2 weeks later you can't do no more. You're a third division player.
No, listen, they all have people whispering down their ears, and it's like Steve was just saying there, it's thank you very much for what you've done for me, but I'm off. So really and truthfully, it's a fuck you. I'm going. I don't care. And you know, me and Steve are laughing about it, and I'm in a position now where I can laugh about it all the time. But it used to be very, very upsetting. And you know, I always say when you're on a good run, get your ball protected on, because someone's going to kick you in the nuts, and that is the nature of the beast within boxing. It's not just hard for the actual boxers, and we obviously do it to help them out and feel sorry for them, and you know, want to carry on with them all the way if things are right. But no, it's tough for us. It's tough for them. But the grass isn't always green. I mean, what I like now is when they want to come back, and that's another lesson I've learned. I never take anyone back now.
No, same here. Do you know something? 5 years ago, when I was doing down in London, I think it was Kevin Merry at the time. He said to me, he said, "Steve Wood is the best manager promoter up north." He said, "And to me, you're the Steve Wood of the south." And I took that as a really good compliment. And I always say that to people, because Steve's been fantastic. I always admired what Steve has done through boxing. But no matter how good a job he does, he will have been kicked in the balls exactly the same as I have. But you just have to accept that. I used to take it personally. I don't take it personally anymore.
Really? Do you when you two Steves, you're both similar age, similar time in life. You're both, you know, Steve Goodwin's been very successful in finance. You know, your stuff during lockdown on Facebook was fantastic. A lot of people spoke and watched that when you were giving the free financial advice. Woody, you've been successful in engineering. You've both worked your nuts off at boxing. Woody since the mid-90s. I think Steve come in early 2000s. Was it around then?
2010.
2010. Wow, I didn't realise. I thought it was before then. Wow. You've both really worked hard. Do you think when, you know, Steve Wood's talking of slowing down, you're sort of hinting at it a bit, Steve, there. Do you think there'll be young promoters come through who'll be willing to have the work ethic that you two might have for boxing and your own business?
I think to work like Steve Wood does and work like I do and we do here, I don't think there are many people that do the same. I think there's people that do a lot of talking, but they don't really deliver what they say. And I think there's a lot of that. So no, I don't think there'll be many more to come through. I think Steve Wood set the standard for how to be a good manager and how to develop fighters. And I always use example. I generally say this, when I talk to fighters who are going to sign, I always use Steve as an example of what is a good manager and how he's particularly developed people like Josh Warrington, which I think is like the example to everybody of how to develop a fighter. So no, I don't think a lot of the ones coming through will be a patch on what Steve has done, and I've just done it to a much lesser degree. But no, I don't think so. And that's being honest. I'm not saying we're going to slow down as such, but we're just not going to take the shit that we took before and have the time wasted that we've had before. So like Steve said, I think I'm just a bit behind him. My life is just probably a bit behind.
Yeah, Steve was in it a few years before you, so yeah, okay. Yeah, it's incredible, really. You're very much from the same hymn sheet, different sides of the country. You know, it's quite remarkable. Woody, can you see anyone coming through? Do you look out there and see any promoters who have got a business outside and are promoting shows you think they might take over from the likes of Steve Goodwin and myself, and we go when we slow right down?
You know, I think what Steve's doing and what I've done, you've got to be a fool to do it, to be honest with you. So obviously I've got a young son coming through. I know Steve got his sons doing it. I've told my son not to do it. So I don't think so. It just doesn't make sense. And hopefully one thing that will come out of this is that what we're seeing on the TV shows is the matches will be a little bit tough for everyone and be a lot fairer than what maybe me and Steve have done in the past. We might have to change and make them a bit harder, and hopefully that'll mean that the ticket sales, which is the hardest thing for all the boxers, will increase, and then that'll make it work. And so if it's a viable business where the promotions can make money, I think some like ex-boxers, you know, will do it. But to be a businessman and have a tough business life, which you're going to have now coming out of this COVID and a recession, which is surely going to follow, you're not going to want to be putting your efforts into a business where you not just lose money, but you get a lot of stress. So I think it'd be foolish for anyone to do it, and I wouldn't recommend it. And if I was to start again, it'd have to be a lot different.
Yeah, Josh, my son Josh is actually qualifying. He's been studying for 3 years. He'll be a fully fledged financial advisor by November. So his emphasis now is the financial world as well. So whilst he still loves boxing, it's now number 2 for him.
But he must be seeing the stress and upset it's caused his dad over the years. You know, you were saying you should take it personally when fighters leave you. If he was coming home from university or wherever he was working, and he sees his dad upset over a boxer leaving him, it's going to hurt him as well, because, you know, the last thing he wants to do is see you sitting at home upset with your wife because you're his father.
Yeah, exactly. No, exactly. Although he's more pragmatic, he just said, don't worry about it. It doesn't matter. If they're going to do that to you, they're not worth nothing. Let them go. Move on. They're not part of your life. They're not the people that matter. He said the people that matter, there are boxers that I'm really good friends with who have retired and still come around for something to eat. They're my friends. Boxers that are going to do that to you, they're not your friends. They've not treated you properly. So do they really matter? Probably not. So really, I've got to the stage now that if somebody doesn't want to treat me well, then why should I be bothered? I treat it now. If a boxer comes to me and says, I want my contract back, and it's totally unjustified, to me, you've now moved it to a totally business decision, which means I want you to give me money, and then I will walk from that deal. And I never used to be like that, but I do that as a matter of principle now.
What about you on that sort of thing, Steve Wood?
I just give it him straight back. I understand where Steve's coming from, but the actual stress that goes with trying to sort those deals out as well isn't worth it. So if like Steve's saying, he gets to the point where it's not workable, they don't want to be with you, you don't want to be with them, I just cut it straight away. And you know, it goes back, once you've got like a bad apple in the barrel, don't ruin the barrel, get rid of them. And you know, I don't even bother about saying, look, I've lost X amount of thousands, which you would have done them on there. I'm not releasing you till you give me that. That isn't worth the hassle for me. As I say, I've had 2 strokes. I'm not saying it was definitely through the pressures of the beefy boxing, but possibly could have. I'd never ever waste any of my time on the boxers again.
Yeah, and Woody, was it? You know, you've had, as same as Steve, as you've had a lot of fighters you've done a great job with, you know, walked away. Does having someone like Josh Warrington showing the loyalty has restored faith? Like you know, when you've moved promoters, he's gone with you, and you know, he's seemed to everything you've done for him on board.
Yeah, you know what? That's what I'm saying is we Josh, hopefully we'll see it right out to the end together, and that'll be the best ride that I've had in the boxing. Obviously, we've had relationships with other boxers, Jamie Moore from the start to the finish, and you know that's satisfying as maybe the wins and the championships that you've had together. So you know it is a good thing when that happens, but. Going back to the bad things, I've learned straight away that if people are like that, they're not the people you want to work with anyway. And very fortunate, like Steve, I've got another business where I don't need the money from boxing, as in commissions off them, which helps towards the losses on the shows. Doesn't fully cover it, but it helps. So just get rid of them, and hopefully, you know. I've learned over the years, and I sit down and they can all see the books of my shows. I'm not hiding anything, because you turn out to me, I lost money. Why are you doing it then? Why are you doing it then? Well, come on here, let me show you the facts and figures. So I show them to kids now, and certainly most of them understand it, but whether that helps in their decisions, if someone comes along, and I've had a lot recently where certain promotional companies got monies giving kids work and retainers. Well, it's just something I can't do anyway. So if they want to go that way, I just release them.
Yeah. And the final question I'll ask you, you've both been very valuable with your time today. Steve Wood, on your final thoughts, where do you see non-televised small hall boxing in 12 months?
You know what? I'm optimistic. I'm going to say I'll see it better than it has 12 months ago, with more competitive fights, more people coming to the shows, and the promoters walking away, hopefully not lost any money, and smiling because they put a good event on where the people have been and seen a better show than they were seeing 18 months ago. Yeah.
You're optimistic. Woody not losing money. Steve Goodwin, let's get your final thoughts, my friend.
Well, I don't like losing money, so we work around. We don't lose money. But the bottom line is, I actually agree with Steve. I think you're going to have a lot of. We know that when a boxer starts his career off, for the first initial time, they sell lots of tickets, and then the ticket sales become a lot more difficult for them as they go through. I think we're going to have mountains of boxers like making their debuts again, with everybody wanting to come back to boxing. I think, like Steve thinks, I think we'll have sold out venues. I think we'll have better fights. We'll have boxers willing now to see whether they're good enough, because boxers at a lower level, there's no money in it. I think boxers will be willing to test themselves more to see whether they can get up a level. There'll be better fights, bigger crowds. I think going forward it's going to be great, but I just think it's just going to be a bit of time till that happens. It may be 12 months from now, maybe 9 months from now, but when it does come back, I think it comes back with a bang, and those good promoters will survive, and they will flourish.
Fellas, I can't thank you both enough for giving us the time this afternoon. Good luck when you go away tomorrow, Steve Goodwin, and thanks for your time, Woody. I dare say I'll speak to you at the end of the week, Woodster. Thank you.
Cheers, Steve, and nice to speak to you, Steve, as well. Yeah.
You take care. See you later.
Thanks, boys.
Cheers, Dan.
For all boxing info, news, and latest interviews, amateur and pro, across the north, click and subscribe. VIP Boxing Promotions. Also, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.